Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Surplus 2425. I call this meeting to order at 7:08 p.m. We're going to start with amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments? Tommy,
I motion
microphone.
motion to add a bylaw change.
It's off.
I motion to add a bylaw change to Article 2, Section C, subsection 5, subsection E.
I know. I'm waiting for someone to raise their hand. I'm waiting for someone to raise their hand for like the next. Yeah. I mean, like, no changes to the agenda. Bethany.
Hi, can I please strike capital contingency allocations? Thank you.
Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Bethany, is your hand set up? Seeing none, could we get a motion? Kiara.
I motion to approve the Tuesday, May 6th USAC agenda.
Second.
Kiara motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 12-0 vote, that is approved. We have minutes from April 31st, April 29th. Sorry. Is there any opposition to approving those? Seeing none, those are approved. We're now going to transition into public comment. Just a reminder for everyone that's here for public comment, we have 30 minutes allocated and each public commenter gets 2 minutes to speak once. Public comment is only for members of the association, meaning only registered undergraduate students at UCLA. Some of our community guidelines include challenge ideas, not individuals, use gender inclusive and respectful language, and freedom of speech does not mean freedom from accountability. With that being said, is there anyone that's here in person that's here for public comment? We'll go in order starting my left to right. So yes.
Testing. Okay. Want me to start? Okay, my name is Malia Frazier. I am a second year here, and I'm here to represent the African Student Union as we talk about our surplus funding. So as you may or may not know, the Black student population here makes up less than 6% of the school. This is a predominantly white institution. There are also a lot of other cultural groups that make up that number. The Black Bruins often go underrepresented. Like currently this year in USAC, there are no Black student members on the board, and that is also disheartening to see. So I'm here to advocate on our behalf of like getting more money for surplus funding so we can retain Black students at this school, especially given the current political climate and just other things. I think it's more important than ever for us to be seen and heard because we're often the forefront of other issues, but nobody's really there to advocate for us. So we're here to advocate for ourselves on our behalf of receiving surplus funding so our programs can continue to go on next year and that we have funding and the students within our Harambe Council and just other Black pre-professional clubs are given and afforded the opportunity to have pre-professional opportunities and just other club opportunities where we felt seen and heard within our own culture and just other groups. So that's just what I would have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe yes in the blue.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Kali Jackson, and I'm a fourth-year political science major at UCLA, and I currently serve as the vice chairperson of the African Student Union. And I'm here advocating on behalf of the African Student Union for the surplus allocation proposal coming from the African Student Union. It is vital that the programs and the initiatives that are under the African Student Union are active and present and stay here even beyond year 2025 and going on to 2026 and beyond. And so I ask that you strongly stand with the African Student Union saying and voting yes for the proposal that we are proposing for the African Student Union. As my colleague Malia has echoed, I echo what Malia has mentioned, that it is vital that Black students are not only retained, but they are seen, heard, and advocated for here at UCLA, and that we are represented at UCLA, not just in the African Student Union, but abroad as well. So thank you for this time.
Thank you. For the people that just walked in, are you giving public comments? Or yeah, we'll continue in order. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Amarai Scott, and I'm a staff member for the African Student Union. And I just wanted to advocate my strong support for the 100K surplus for the African Student Union. The African Student Union provides a lot of necessary programs for Black students to be seen here on campus, such as AfroGrad. And with the Harambe Council, we have 38 Black organizations. So this surplus will be very vital to put on these events to support our Black students here on campus. So I just encourage you guys to pass this.
Hi, my name is Tara Moore, and I'm also a member of the Black Bruin community here at UCLA, and I strongly support the investment in the surplus. As a pre-med student, as well as a student looking to go into research and looking towards an MD PhD at a time when money is being divested from my education and many others like me, it's more important than ever that my community is behind me and supporting me, which means money funded into programs that create a safe space in which I can be mentored and my ability fostered so that I can be invited into these spaces that historically I have been ignored in. So I strongly support this initiative, and I hope you all do as well.
Hello, my name is Ariana Muniz Austin. I am also here on behalf of the African Student Union, and I currently serve as the 24-25 ASU Programming Coordinator. And with this role, I've had the opportunity to understand the process of planning events, but also how to finance them, working with our finance coordinator. And I know the importance of having funding to do so. Like my colleague previously mentioned, we have 38 organizations that fall under ASU, and with that, the surplus goes divided between all of these organizations. And with ASU being an umbrella to these organizations, it is important that we have resources to provide them access to as well. And so I just want to strongly encourage the passing of the surplus, not only for us, but the organizations and the other students who it will impact in addition to our own personal organization. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Wyatt Lewis. I am a fellow Black Bruin, and I am for the surplus passing. As a Black Bruin, I've seen firsthand how efficient programming and good programming is good for our community. Not only will that money suffice, it will also go above and beyond when it comes to programming and meetings and being able to have those workshops and being have that access, especially when it comes to African Americans, since we only make up 6% of the population here at UCLA, not being able to see one another, not being able to see each other in our classes. I think not only having this money will be able to bring us closer together, but also have these programming that will bring us closer together. So.
Hello. Oh, my name is Tara Mune, and I currently work as the Executive Advocacy Director for the Gen Rep 3 office. I'm here with some members from our office to urge the council to support and fund the Swipes for Shirts campaign to raise awareness of swipe out hunger on campus, while also making sure that less students at UCLA go hungry. We firmly believe that this initiative will make a difference by getting more students to donate their unused meal swipes, so please consider voting yes, and please also consider volunteering or telling your office to volunteer for our initiative. We estimate that it will contribute roughly 13,000 donated swipes in just one quarter. So please look to the document in front of you for more information if necessary. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sophia Gevorgian, and you have probably already received an email from me in the past regarding our initiative at GR3's office regarding t-shirts, swipe donations. So essentially, you have a printout in front of you, like Shaylee and here mentioned, that outlines our proposal in full. We are looking forward to starting to table week 8, so we'd love to have your support once we get everything settled in. So you'll hear from me soon again. We hope to have your support in terms of funding so that we can max out on how many t-shirts we can purchase and therefore how many students we can bring into the donation program and essentially collect additional swipes that otherwise would not have been entering the system. So thank you very much, and we look forward to your support.
My name's Paige Werner. I currently work as a director in the IVP office and the ISR offices. As a collaborator and supporter of GR3's initiatives, I'm here to urge the council to support and fund the Swipes for Shirts campaign. This campaign will allow us to raise awareness of Swipe Out Hunger on campus while also making sure that less students at UCLA go hungry. Chris, Harem, Sophia, Mark, and the rest of the GR3 team are working to make a difference by getting more students to donate their unused meal swipes, so please consider voting yes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Brown. I'm the current finance director of GR3, and I'm here in support of the Swipes for Shirt funding proposal. Currently, Swipe Out Hunger only holds booths during week 10 of every quarter, but with this funding, we'll begin boothing during week 8. This gives us more time to increase visibility and awareness for the Swipe Out Hunger program, and this combined with our incentive of shirts, giving out shirts, will allow us to get more students to donate. And with 1,000 shirts that we'll be able to purchase with the surplus funding, we'll be able to get 1,000 more students to sign up. And from data collected, each student has 13 unused swipes per quarter. 1,000 shirts given out times 13 is 13,000 swipes donated per quarter. And if students continue donating throughout their time on the Hill, this could exponentially increase the amount of swipes donated and reduce meal insecurity. So I really hope you guys support this program. Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, my name's Gunnar. I was here a few weeks ago talking, and I'm back again. As the vice chair for CalPERG, I'm just here to give a little update on student activism on campus and what we've kind of been doing in the past week or so. So we just wrapped up our pledge drive, which is where we ask students to support us through their activities fee, which represents very much what we do. We're a fully student-run and funded organization. We only support causes that students are willing to pay money to support. Along with that, we just had our biannual statewide conference where we discussed, one, the statewide board for CalPERG, and two, what exactly we're going to be doing next fall as far as our main campaign, which is going to be our Save the Bees campaign. We've already started working on that in the form of No Bee Plate Without the Bees, and we're going to be doing that more next quarter. Additionally, fun thing, happy 20th annual Oceans Day. That's today, in case you didn't know. A bunch of CalPERGers are at the state capitol right now advocating for increased marine protected areas, specifically for our kelp forests, which they are watching a documentary screening right now called Sequoias of the Sea, which we will also be screening next week in Royce in room 166 at 6 p.m. next Friday. Just talking about marine protected areas and the kelp forest and all of that fun stuff. Also, last week, we got to a really awesome opportunity to talk to Assistant Vice Chancellor Frank Wada to discuss textbook affordability and also about our New Voter Project, which is a huge campaign that we've been running for over 40 years now, which was really, really cool. And we really look forward to working with USAC and the Academic Senate on both affordable textbooks and also new voters. Finally, one last little thing is, as I'm sure you guys are all aware, USAC elections are coming up starting Friday, going for the next week, and CalPERG is going to be running a campaign for voter education to just make sure students are aware of how they can vote, where they can vote, and that they all very much should vote. So we'll be running a table on Bruin Walk starting Friday, going into next week. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Flores, and I'm here as treasurer on behalf of Grupo Folclórico de UCLA. Grupo Folclórico de UCLA was founded in 1966, and every year we have had our program called Fiesta Mexicana. This year will be held in Royce Hall. For the past 17 years, it has been held in Royce Hall. However, year after year, as I'm sure you guys know, Royce Hall has increased significantly in prices. For reference, our $26,000 budget program, out of that, $21,000 is just for Royce. And for another comparison, last year from the BOD application, we received $7,000, and this year we only received $4,000. For us, having our program as Royce Hall is especially meaningful considering the long history UCLA has of mistreatment and cultural erasure of its Latinx population. We provide this free to our students. We continuously do fundraising campaigns so that our members don't have to pay as much out of pocket. We work with other schools to borrow vestuario, and we constantly keep the authenticity of our program. This is one of the biggest programs, I would argue, at UCLA for the Latinx population. We have been told by Royce staff that we are one of the few programs that actually bring full house to Royce Hall. And it's just meaningful to us because we get to mark our presence and educate others on our culture and our traditions. And I hope you consider increasing our fund through the BOD. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is America Barrera. I currently serve as the coordinator for Grupo Folclórico de UCLA. So I've been, helping Wendy out with talking to our SOL advisors and kind of working a lot behind the scenes. And I feel like I see a lot of the struggle that we've been having when it comes to collecting those funds for our Royce Hall Showcase. And I kind of just want to emphasize how important the showcase is for our community. Not only is it important for our UCLA community, but also our outside LA community. We have families that come from all over California, even from the East Coast. Like families come, people come to come watch and see kind of our culture thrive in an institution such as UCLA. So I just wanted to reiterate my support for the surplus going to Grupo Folclórico de UCLA.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Jazzy Bermejo, and I'm a student here at UCLA and the current president of Samahang Filipino. Samahang Filipino is the largest and oldest Filipinx organization on campus, representing the Filipinx community within the Mother Organizations Coalition. And tonight, I want to speak on behalf of our cultural night and the class of 2025 Filipinx celebration, and also USAC's failure to bridge the university's gaps in systemic support of our community and its flagship programs of cultural empowerment. First, I'd like to provide context on the class of 2025 Filipinx celebration, commonly referred to as PGRAD. Spanning this university's establishment and beyond, our community has faced more than adverse conditions in relation to access and retention in higher education, from UCLA's removal of Filipinos from affirmative action in 1988 to historically decreased retention rates in comparison to our white counterparts. It is through years and years of painstaking work that our community has made strides in reversing the systemic oppression of our people, taking space for ourselves within university, a system that holds promises of mobility and liberation for us Filipino youth. Beginning in 1992, PGRAD has been a hallmark celebration of these very struggles and triumphs for over 33 years, calling attention to our victories in access and retention at UCLA. However, as we know, these celebrations come with a price tag, and this year's original budget was around $22,000. But with Royce being over $13,000 alone, in spite of it being $8K 2 years ago, our budget has since dropped to $17,000. And secondly, I'd like to provide context on SPCN. For 48 years, its production has uplifted Filipino culture and dance, both its participants, coordinators, and viewers as the oldest cultural night at UCLA. And this year, it comprises 250 members, and without fail, they managed to pack Royce Hall seats. This community recognition expands beyond UCLA's campus and connects with other Culture Night productions all across California. This year, our budget is around $77,000, with Royce Hall being $40,000 on its own. And after communicating with several organizations' struggles, we see that this issue is clear in its widespread plaguing of marginalized communities university-wide. To bring in why this matter is
Please
important.
come to your closing remarks.
To bring in why this matter is important to USAC and all of you as its presiding officers, this last BOD funding allocation cycle is quite frankly an insult to our community's celebration and empowerment in the face of systemic struggle. Knowing just how large USAC's funding is as a whole and surplus specifically, why is there such a large discrepancy between the rising cost of programming in comparison to the weakening financial support that is meant to be and has historically been provided by USAC? Budget and funding allocations stand as moral documents and sources of material empowerment in terms of how administrative powers see, value, and prioritize our communities that are struggling. And so how is it that BOD has allocated a mere $1,200 to Samahang Filipino with $600 to SPCN and PGRAD respectively?
Thank you for your comments.
My height. Okay. Good evening. My name is Lindsay Samble, and I'm the Filipinx Celebration Coordinator. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Samahang Filipino's Class of 2025 Filipinx Celebration and the broader issue of funding for cultural celebrations here at UCLA. It has become clear that we need to address the funding crisis for culture nights and graduation ceremonies right now, not in the distant future, but tonight. The reality we face is that if these events continue to be underfunded, we risk not just the erasure of these celebrations, but the erasure of our collective history. This year, we have already made significant difficult reductions to our budget, cutting over $6K from our planned funds to compensate for the sharp decline in financial support. We are operating within the severe constraint of a $600 allocation, which covers only 3% of our total projected expenses and a mere 4.5% of the costs required to secure Royce Hall alone. It's difficult not to feel disheartened by this dramatic drop in support. But the reality is that costs are only going to keep rising. So I'm here to ask, how do we sustain cultural celebrations meaningfully in a system that keeps asking us to do more with less? We humbly but urgently request consideration for surplus funding. These events are not just celebrations, they are a way of recognizing and honoring the achievements, struggles, and the resilience of students from underrepresented communities. Knowing that a majority of the council members ran on platforms that emphasize wanting to bridge gaps between higher education and marginalized communities, yet this is a celebration that recognizes both of those objectives, and it is not being prioritized in funding. We are told that history matters here, that representation matters, that inclusion is what makes this institution excellent. But I ask you, what is the value of those words if the very communities that bring them to life are left fighting year after year just to be seen? What does it say about us as a university if cultural pride is celebrated in brochures but not in budgets? If diversity is upheld in rhetoric but abandoned in practice? Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Mika Kabebe. I'm a current student here at UCLA, as well as the current external vice president of Samahang Filipino, or SP. I'm here to express strong support in favor of allocating surplus funding to BOD in order to further and equitably fund the MOs and other cultural organizations, culture nights, and graduation ceremonies, as well as the other initiatives brought up currently in public comment. I also urge you all to make this an agenda item for next week's USAC meeting in order to further be detailed and drawn out. And as someone who's been able to firsthand experience trying to navigate these cuts to funding while also maintaining the pro-people programming and resources that Samahang Filipino offers, it's been extremely difficult to ensure that SP, along with its entities, maintains its accessibility to its general members. Being a part of Samahang Filipino's board last year, as well as last year's Campus Retention Committee chairperson, I'm no stranger to cuts in funding, and there being the means to fund organizations, or there being the means to fund yet they're not being funded are not new to me. And this really just causes our organizations and communities to be pit against each other instead of being able to carry out the different initiatives that they have planned and have currently been carrying out. With that being said, many other groups have voiced their concerns about funding being allocated, as you have seen today. And I once again just urge you all as council members to support the underserved and underrepresented communities here on campus. Again, as a council that runs on the platforms of uplifting and supporting the mother organizations and other represented and marginalized groups on campus, does this reflect the extent of your efforts with spring quarter almost coming to an end? I urge you all to consider the effects of what would happen if cultural nights and cultural programs like SPCN and pre-grad were to continue to be underfunded in the future. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alisa Kosiko, and I'm here as a student at UCLA and the current Samahang Filipino Cultural Night Coordinator. I'm here to speak on the larger issue of funding for cultural celebrations at UCLA and to express strong support in favor of allocating surplus funding to BOD in order to further and equitably fund the MOs and other cultural organizations, cultural nights, and graduation ceremonies, as said in previous public comments. I also urge you all to make this an agenda item for next week's USAC meeting to be further detailed and drawn out. For more context on Samahang Filipino, Samahang Filipino has existed on this campus for nearly 50 years in the tradition of Filipino cultural education and representation. We're the first and oldest on-campus student group to establish the use of Royce Hall for our productions, thus being a catalyst for the institution to finally take notice of student-run productions and performances, especially by marginalized communities. And we continuously sell out tickets in minutes and enrich the student life at UCLA with a free show of cast sizes as small as 250 and as large as 400 students participating in our organizations. You may have also noticed the multitude of cultural practices outside on campus in the day and throughout the days and nights, both by SPCN and other cultural nights. And these cultural nights continue to be an integral part of students' experiences to learn about themselves and the beauty of our diversity as students here on campus. We heavily rely on funding apps such as BOD in order to provide an integral to provide the experiences for such large cast sizes, and with Royce Hall venues continuously increasing in price. Being part of this organization for the past 4 years, you continue to see the effects of decreased funding every year for an increasingly expensive venues. This is a free show made to enrich student life and show people the cultural richness that UCLA advertises, yet these cuts to funding continue to make it unsustainable to continue having these productions. With this, I strongly urge you to consider BOD funding for these cultural celebrations and to continue the existence for something so critical to student life. Thank you.
Do we have any other public commenters? Do we have anyone online? Ania?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Hello, my name is Anaya Story. I'm a third-year psychobio major at UCLA, and I'm also the Director of Internal Affairs at Melanin Medicine, one of the 38 organizations under the body of ASU, as well as under the Harambe Council, and I'm urging the councils to support the $100,000 surplus for the African Student Union. Just want to highlight what has been said by other members of the community here today, that funding for cultural organizations is key not only to Black student retention, but also gives us Black students the opportunity to form community on campus. Like others have said, we are a very small population here, and it's extra important that we have the resources to see ourselves represented and to create those spaces where we feel safe and can actually make genuine connections with one another. And yes, thank you.
Kalila?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kalila Williams, and I'm with the African Student Union. I currently serve as the chairperson for this academic year, and I am speaking today's public comment in support of our surplus for 100K. We are currently fighting for this surplus because we, as Black students, have hardly been given any money for our African graduation this year, and we really need the support as venue costs keep rising, our student supports keep lowering. We're no longer getting allocations from the university, and especially unless we take the name of Black out of our graduation. And as a cultural and political organization, we will not do that. We will not stand with the university trying to silence us and cut our funding, no matter what pressure they're receiving from the federal government. They should be standing on what they initially stood for and how they want to say that they stand for DEI, but then show us something different. So we do expect, we are submitting this proposal so that we can get that student support, funding support, as well as for our annual programs. We have multiple programs that we submit, that we host every year for Black students, including Black Bruin Transfer Extravaganza, our Admit Weekend, our Black Bruin Welcome Week, Higher Education Conference, among many others. And we currently don't have the funding to support all of these events. And so we are hoping that we can get the surplus allocation so that we can support these events, as well as we have applied to multiple funding sources, just as Minia said, BOD, and we have not received funding from them. We stand strongly with some as they also have not received funding. So this is a really important thing that we get our assistance with programming, our assistance with our project. We have 3 projects, AEP, ASP, and SHAPE, that need support. We are a strong Black Bruin community that need funding in order to continue to retain here.
Thank you, Kikili.
Hi, yes, my name is Kikeli Bawenyo. I'm here as a member of the Black Bruin community and the chair of AfroGrad, which is housed under the African Student Union. I'm here to express my strong support for ASU's surplus proposal. The $100,000 being requested would directly support Black student programming, including AfroGrad. The cost of student graduations is incredibly high with little support due to cuts in funding. It is incredibly difficult as a student org to put on these programs when we have venue costs as high as $23,000. The funding requested would help to celebrate higher education in the face of all these attempts to cut back cultural celebrations and diversity. These resources are not just helpful, but they're necessary. In order to continue to support diversity, especially in Black Bruins at UCLA, we need to celebrate students through all phases, especially graduation. Please vote yes on this proposal and invest in Black student life at UCLA. And this goes for any other cultural program or graduation that is spoken today. Thank you.
Thank you. I now close public comment at 7:38 p.m. and we're going to move on to funding, starting with contingency.
Hey there, this week we had a total contingency programming request of $66,223 and we recommend an allocation of $38,070 for 3 USAC entities and 57 non-USAC entities. I'm happy to answer any questions and I've also just pasted it in the chat.
Could someone motion those, please? Javi.
I move to approve the recommended allocation of $38,070 for 3 USAC entities and 57 non-USAC entities.
Second.
Javi motions, Mona seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With an 11-0 to 1 vote, that is approved. Next, you have SFS allocations.
This week, SFS recommends an allocation of $9,921.45 to 11 non-USAC entities.
Is there any opposition to that allocation? Seeing none, we're going to move on to SWC.
This week, the Student Wellness Commission Programming Fund recommends a total of 2 allocations totaling $1,750 with 1 to a USAC entity.
Is there any opposition? Seeing none, we're going to move on to BAG.
Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be recommending an allocation of $6,580 to 13 non-USAC entities.
Thank you. Is there any opposition? Oh, Lorelai.
Hi, that was the one that I shared last week, so it's already been approved. You all voted on it.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, it has? Okay, nice.
ARC allocations.
Hey, y'all. ARC recommends a total allocation of $21,489.58 to 8 non-USAC entities, and I'll paste those in the chat.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the allocation? Seeing none, do we have TGIF numbers?
Hi, everyone. TGIF recommends an allocation of $28,074 to 3 non-USAC entities and 0 USAC entities, and I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you. Can we get Bruin Card and Laundry Grant, please?
Hello, the Laundry Grant recommends an allocation of $25 to 5 individuals, and the Bruin Card Grant recommends an allocation of $15 to 2 individuals.
Is there any opposition to those allocations? Seeing none, we're going to move on. Given the nature of today's meeting being carryover meeting, we're going to skip officer reports unless anyone has something really important they want to share. Okay, Orlando. Jessica. Lori.
Just happy birthday to the May birthdays. Javi gets it twice because we celebrated him at South Bay. There's snacks on the table for you to eat during your long, hopefully not super long carryover conversation.
Jonathan.
Hey, hi, hello. I think you all know what the first one is that's coming. Adam, Javi, Josh, Kyland, Mona, Diego, and Tommy. The exact same list that I said last week. We need your transition documents as soon as possible. You will lose a stipend check and you will not get a cord. That's in your bylaws. Fight me on it.
Does anyone want a motion to suspend the bylaw?
Other things. A quick round of applause for Chris Ramsey, who is the winner of the ASUCLA talent show for his piano performance. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. 300 bucks. Yeah, he played Pirates of the Caribbean on the piano for the mic. Okay. Keep an eye out. We are as words. As part of SGS policy, we are your backup phone number or email on all of your accounts. So Lorelai and I are working through all that to make sure that that is all done before the new folks come in. So please keep an eye out, or if you get like one of those emails that's like, your blah, blah, blah has been updated, it's probably us, but feel free to check. A good handful of you have outstanding bills from event services. You should have all received emails from us. We did add the prior year bills into your discussion tonight. So if that passes, you don't need to deal with any prior year bills, but current year bills you have to pay. And then I have some deadlines for you as you all come out of term. These are all really important. They're hard deadlines. The first is your social media turnover. You will be required to hand over your social media accounts to the new officer by the 23rd of May. And you will be out of them by the 23rd of May. If the person coming in is amenable to you staying on for a little longer, that's at their discretion, but as of after the 23rd, it is no longer your property. It never was. Your offices, your last day in your office is the 26th of May. Please, please, please work on cleaning those things now. If there's any maintenance things that need to happen, etc. But your access will be turned off. Your office.
Unless the incoming officer.
Yeah, unless you're the same person, then that's not a problem.
Or if the incoming officer agrees to.
No.
If the incoming officer agrees to let you keep access.
Then they can have you fill out a new access form and put you on their list.
Naomi just stayed in my office last year.
And then your email turnover, you will need to turn over your official email by the 30th. That is so you can finish out your bills, which is a part of the reason we want you to finish out your bills now. But you will need to have access by that 30th date. And then the really important one here is that the new officers will be inducted. They'll do their oath on the 27th of May. As soon as that happens, you are no longer in office. You are no longer allowed to program on behalf of your office. So particularly thinking of that as you do carryover today, you cannot do anything on behalf of your office from the 27th on. That is the end. Yes.
Don't we still have budget control?
Correct, but you can't put on an event on behalf of the new president after that date. You have signatory access to continue to finish out your bills, etc., which is why you have it till the 30th. But you should not be planning any events, anything from that 27th on. Yes, Chris. Well, yes, if you're in the same role, that's not a problem. Okay, that's all. I'll put all those deadlines in the Slack.
Okay, we have the resolution demanding reformed audits of CAE and campus accessibility. Joy plus sponsors, feel free to read through or summarize.
Hi, everyone. Oh, yeah. Josh can go ahead and start reading.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah, I was just going to say we were going to read it together. To start us off, whereas the Center for Accessible Education, CAE at UCLA, was recently audited by one member of an external organization, AHEAD, Association on Higher Education and Disability, and whereas the director of CAE, Spencer Scruggs, is currently a director at large of AHEAD and thus creates a conflict of interest for biased auditing, and whereas the most recent solo auditor only came for less than one school week to examine the structures of CAE in contrast to audits run at other universities, such as the University of California, San Diego, where two professional auditors went for 4 days of interviews alone. UCLA's head audit only had one auditor and only provided 3 hours of collective opportunity for student testimony. Meanwhile, the opportunity to provide testimony was not publicized in an easily accessible manner to CAE students, and whereas the most recent audit did not provide students with reliable anonymity or an opportunity to voice concerns about the Center for Accessible Education, and whereas while other head audits, such as one at UCSD, concerned multiple structures impacting the audience, impacting the experiences of disabled students on campus, UCLA's audit only focused on the Center for Accessible Education and thus excluded the Academic Senate, CAE Housing, Bruin Access, the paratransit system here, ADA and 504 Compliance Office, and general on-campus accessibility, including elevators, automatic doors, ramps, and other accessible facilities.
Whereas anonymous testimony from independently surveyed CAE students indicates that CAE still faces several issues, including a lack of staffing and insufficient wait times for both housing and academic accommodations, none of which were thoroughly addressed in the most recent external audit due to its narrow scope and timeframe. And whereas CAE has an appropriate staff to student ratio of 1 to 384, which is significantly lower than the national average of 1 to 133. And whereas on March 11th, 2025, the Undergraduate Student Association Council, USAC, unanimously passed a resolution calling for increased services and funding for Bruin Access due to insufficient wait times, a lack of drivers, and missed rides, which is a university violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act ADA and Regents Policy 4400. And whereas Bruin Access rides are not guaranteed even if requested 24 hours in advance due to severe delays, which is in violation of the ADA. And whereas an external audit that only focuses on CAE and academic accommodations does not reflect the varying lived experiences and needs of disabled students on campus. And
Therefore, let it be resolved that USAC demands that UCLA orders a true comprehensive external audit of the Center of Accessible Education and campus accessibility programs, including but not limited to Bruin Access, CAE Housing, ADA/504 Compliance Office, not through a head that uses reliable data and testimonies from current students and provides students with the option to remain anonymous when participating in the audit. And let it be resolved that USAC urges the UCLA administration to not publicize as well as disregard the results of the most recent CAE audit from a head due to the aforementioned conflict of interest. And let it be finally resolved that the reformed audit will take into account the systems and student experiences of CAE, Bruin Access, CAE Housing, and on-campus accessibility in order to provide a comprehensive assessment of disability services on campus.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, could we get a motion, please? Josh.
I motion to approve the resolution demanding reformed audits of CAE and campus accessibility.
I second.
Josh motions, Tameem seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 14 to 0 vote, that is approved. We have 2 bylaw changes. Tommy, feel free to read through both of them.
Good? Okay. No, you're good, you're good. Yeah. All right, so the first bylaw.
Microphone, please.
Yeah. The first bylaw change is to Article 5, Section J, the creation of the Oversight Committee. Article 5, Section J, Oversight Committee 1. The chair of the Oversight Committee shall be responsible for dictating the agenda of and coordinating the overall decision-making for the Oversight Committee and shall be appointed by council in a manner consistent with the committee's charter, a charter approved by USAC, and these bylaws. The Oversight Committee shall maintain a living charter detailing its specific purposes, structure, the terms of governance, and its duties and responsibilities. 3, the committee shall be responsible for communication and coordination with various university entities related to the matter of oversight. 4, general obligations. The Oversight Committee shall prioritize requests related to oversight submitted by council. Upon request of the council, the Oversight Committee shall report on any matter related to its function and records within a 7-day period. C, on a bi-monthly basis, the Oversight Committee shall submit the entirety of its existing outcomes and activities to the council. D, the establishment of cooperative agreements and joint ventures related to the Oversight Committee must be approved by the council.
When do you anticipate having the charter?
Good question.
Yeah, the charter is probably going to be ready by tomorrow. I was waiting to finalize it before. Obviously, this is the week notice. We're not looking for an expedited vote today. So I want an opportunity to probably speak with everyone one more time or 2 or 3 more times before a charter is put up, but it's essentially ready.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Chris?
Yeah, I think this is great and highly support it. A couple of things that I brought up with Nick already. So firstly, I do think it would be good if there was a section before current point one that just kind of very clearly and plainly stated exactly what the goals of the committee are. Just that future committees that are coming in would have very clear direction to make sure that they don't end up doing things that I guess are completely irrelevant from what we want them to do right now in creating it. I also think under general obligations, it would be good if the committee was also asked to find some way to report to the student body, whether that be through social media or other means, on its findings, so that way it's just, we're just improving transparency and just helping more students access that information. So yeah, those are the 2 things that I kind of thought about it. And otherwise, I support it. Look forward to seeing it put in place.
Yeah, within the charter.
Sorry, that's not in order. Only council members are in order to speak.
So those will be included in the charter.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Tommy, feel free to move on. Oh, sorry, Nico.
For the appointment to the chair, who oversees that appointment?
That's a separate bylaw change. That's the next one, but that's going to be Adam. Yes.
Thank you.
Motion? No.
Wait, okay, next one. All right. This is a bylaw change to Article 2, Section C, Subsection 5, Subsection E, adjusting the list of presidential appointments, adding a section VII, Oversight Committee Chair, 1 undergraduate appointee for a 1-year term. All right.
Any questions or comments? Tamim?
Just a quick question. Is it a stipended position?
As of now, no.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we are now going to move on to USAC carryover voting. Actually, I'm going to share my screen because it'll make this way easier. I made a very, very beautiful presentation. I worked really, really hard on it. Is the Zoom link on the agenda correct? No, it's being weird. Sorry? Yeah, but 1 second, I'll fix it. The cookies are really good.
Something over here. Well, we could pass them already.
It might be.
The ASMR.
Hey, I don't think they're hard.
Josh, it's not letting me sign in. Can you just share the presentation? Thank you. Okay, so the way this is going to work is we're going to start off with all the proposals that were submitted on time. They're all on the slide sheet here. Each person will have 2 minutes to present their proposal. If needed, we can go over, but 2 minutes is a good guideline, followed by questions. And then after that, we're going to review the other proposals. Javi has 2 proposals and Robbie has 1 proposal because we're going to have some left over. But yeah, Javi.
What order is it going to go in?
Order that of submission.
Okay.
Josh, next slide. Okay, number 1, standard, happens basically every year. $500 for all directors of non-referendum offices. OP has 10, IVP has 22, TSR has 12, ISR has 6, FAC has 14, FSC has 12, GR1 has 8, GR2 has 10, GR3 has 18, making for a total of, I think it was 122 directors. Maybe 122 112 directors. Each one's $500 for the year, makes a total of 56,000. The amount requested is 56,000, but we would accept 49,000, which I think is 400 per director. But since we have enough money, we think that 500 is fair for all directors. It's a slight decrease from last year, which was at 550, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, any questions? Perfect. Moving on. Nico.
Okay. Hi, everyone. FSC does free quarterly lab coat rentals. So each quarter we rent out lab coats for free to students. We also have goggles. It saves students like $80 to $90. But you know, the price will probably go up anyway because of federal government. So we help students save a lot of money. Unfortunately, though, this is just a program that naturally loses lab coats as time progresses because people graduate and take them home with them. And then when I threaten a hold on their account, it doesn't matter because they graduated and left. So we lose lab coats, but it's still an important program. So this is just going to hopefully double our supply of lab coats. Last time we did this, we had over 250 people request a lab coat from us, and we ran out of lab coats in the first 15 minutes of our first day of offering these rentals, which was a really awkward email to send out to everyone else who did not get a lab coat. So hopefully we will expand this program and be able to help as many students as possible. So thank you.
Comments or questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on. We have AAC with a microwave access project. Also, I don't know why they included each microwave as a separate line item, so it just made for a really big picture. But Chris, go ahead.
Well, that was my fault because I was having fun with the submission. Anyway, so I mean, someone already presented on the project, so I think I'll just say that this is an important project for commuter students especially. But we did have an entire presentation, and I don't want to be here all night, so I'll just leave it at that. Unless anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions, Jonathan?
Yeah, of course, Jonathan.
Okay. Right. These are something that I would consider like a semi-capital item. I think actually, well, you're running again, unopposed at this point. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, then never mind.
Any other comments or questions? So people online, I might not see your hand, so cut me off if you have your hand up, but I don't call on you. Okay, we're going to move on. Next AAC proposal, we have senator/ambassador stipends.
Yeah. So senators are unpaid positions. We don't, it's 250 there per senator, so we're only giving them 250. We're not giving them, 600, 700, 800. It's just a nice stipend that is way below the amount of time they put in. And then there's the student lead senators as well on there. And then the ambassadors, which, as we mentioned, we have 2 ambassadors with the registrar. So we're essentially paying them for their time.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to GR3, swipe for shirts.
Yeah, so I think our incredible public commenters already talked about it a bit. And you also have an info sheet in front of you. But yeah, basically we're doing a swipe for shirt drive in collaboration with Swap Out Hunger to try to increase the number of students who are part of that program and are donating their swipes. I'm a math econ major, and so when I see that we're like buying shirts for less than $6 each, and the one shirt raises on average 13 swipes, we're talking about like less than 50 cents per swipe, which is really, really incredible in terms of being able to get that towards our student body. Not to mention all the additional publicity that Swap Out Hunger is going to get from this. And if we continue this program year after year, we could be talking about like a very, very large increase in terms of that program. So yeah, I highly support it. Let me know if you have any questions.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the next AAC proposal. We have the Fostering Connections mentorship program.
Ooh, this one I'm excited about. Okay, so I can go on and on about this one, but essentially, the Fostering Connections mentorship program will fall underneath one of the platforms that I ran on. Essentially, the purpose of this program is to connect UCLA students to systems involved youth. And so we've received funding externally to be able to pay for like stipends for systems involved youth outside of UCLA, but we need to pay students who are going to take on the mentee mentor role. And there's going to be a lot of programming. So it's separated into three, sort of to model the 3-quarter system that we have here. The first quarter will be all academics related, all financial related, really doing with an educational component, right? We have the oldest mentorship program or mentorship organization, Big Brothers Big Sisters, but organizations like those don't tailor their mentorship program to systems involved youth. And so because of that, systems involved youth don't develop the trust to be paired with someone, and usually it's with an adult. But the purpose would be to help get systems involved youth mentors here, students here at UCLA, to help them not only when it comes to applying to college and just access higher education. As I mentioned, the first quarter we'll have a lot of programming around just education. The second quarter will be collaborative programming, so we'll have all mentees and all mentors together, planning on working with like Brewing Guardian scholars and other organizations here on campus. And then the third quarter we'll have mentees, mentors meeting individually. But yes, that's the breakdown.
Questions, comments? Jessica.
Are you working with a campus department to facilitate this? Because I hear you mentioning multiple quarters, but as a reminder, the funds would need to be utilized before the end of the fiscal year, which is July 31st. So.
Yeah. So yes, the answer would be we were planning on working with BGS and other departments or other programs. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on. We have another AAC program, which is the graduate textbook rental program.
Yeah, so similar to Nico's program, the lab program, we have the graduate test prep book rental program. Essentially, we have a lot of what we do. Usually it's been quarterly, but we've since reimagined the program, and we're working with SGS to have students take this over the summer, take these books over the summer, because it's a longer period of time as opposed to like the 10-week time frame, which students aren't really going to study for 10 weeks because one of those weeks is midterms week, the other week is finals week, and then the weeks before those weeks, like 4, maybe 1 and 1. So 4 weeks, it's just a lot of studying that is not related to this. So this is really to just stock up. Similar to Nico's situation, students have taken the textbooks in previous years. I did an inventory check this year, and we have a lot of inventory missing. And so we're developing, again, as working with SGS, to develop a plan to ensure that there is some type of, I don't want to say punishment, but I guess punishment, it is in return. So, but anyway, this is to make sure that we're able to purchase more supplies. We have limited supplies when it comes to the LSAT. We have a lot of GRE, but we don't really have LSAT stuff, and we have very limited MCAT stuff. And so we want to be able to purchase stuff for that as well. Because a majority of our students, I think, are more interested in LSAT and MCAT in comparison to GRE. But yes.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on. I believe this is the last AAC one, creating the research hub within AAC.
Ooh, this is my favorite one, actually.
They're all your favorite.
I know. What can I say? Today's my favorite day. So creating a research hub with it. This one's really, really important. It's really, really important because, as we know, and as a lot of students have said, we have DEI rollback, and what that means is all of you guys know, a lot of departments are having to eliminate the word DIE. So this program will establish okay, and this is a pilot program, by the way. I want to mention that too, because next year, if this is successful, then we want to run a referendum where we can establish a pillar within AAC that would allow for us to create research programs similar to McNair, but student-led. I had it the other day, someone was talking to me, and I'm like, oh, wait, you just gave me an idea. Why can't we start having student-led research programs where we have students serve as directors, right? We have students really be the center of it. And so this would be a pilot program for that. Yeah, any questions, or I can just continue.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the next proposal, which is ISR.
I'll just read the small spiel which I've written. ISR is excited to introduce the International Student Support Fund, an initiative to directly support international students facing financial hardship through ECRT, which is the Economic Crisis Response Team. Too often, international students are excluded from federal aid, work-study opportunities, and emergency grants. The ISSF is a first step towards closing that gap. Whether it's a sudden family emergency, visa-related expenses, or basic needs in security, this fund is here to ensure that no student is left behind simply because of where they come from. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Jonathan?
Have you talked to ECRT?
Yes, we had like a 1-hour meeting with them, and like, yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we're going to move on. We have GR1, GR2, Latinx, welcome.
Everyone, so yeah, this is kind of something similar to what I think Gen 3 did last year, but essentially, wait, I think is that the open house? That was the first one?
No, you skipped over one, Josh, I think.
Okay, yes. So essentially in the fall quarter, the third annual Latinx Welcome will happen in Wilson Plaza, where over 2,000 undergraduate and graduate students attend to collect and celebrate. This is especially important, as you heard from Samahong and ASU, that how DEI is being rolled back, and UCLA administration is just like fearful, might be taking stances in the future years approaching. So we really need to make the investment now and continue to institutionalize events like this. And so last year's event was about $45,000 with estimated amount of 1,500 attendees, and we ended up reaching over 2,000 students. We are now going on our 4th year of this event. We are seeking funds to continue growing and creating a welcoming community for future generation Bruins. And so the funding amount requested was $64,500. But I don't know how, like, where minimum amount required is $40,000.
Comments, questions? Jonathan?
Yeah, what department will be facilitating these funds?
I think it was Student Affairs from last year, but I think now it might be under the Latinx Success Center.
And they're willing and able to take these funds this fiscal year?
They're the ones that helped to like provide this information.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the next proposal, which is the Latinx Success Center Open House, GR1, GR2 again.
Yeah, so basically this event is to fund, as you know, we just had the grand opening of the Latinx Success Center on the Hill. So basically, this funding will go towards funding an open house event that will help introduce undergraduate and graduate students to the center's services and programs. We're anticipating over 500 attendees at $10 per person. So basically, this will help fund the resources needed to put on this event and make it a welcoming space for students to get introduced to the center. Yeah.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on GR1, GR2 again, the student leadership for the Latinx Success Center.
Yes, so basically this funding will go towards hosting a student leadership retreat. The new director of the Latinx Success Center will host an inaugural retreat this year to help create a dedicated space for Latinx student leaders to come together and shape the future vision of the Latinx Success Center. Basically, we are expecting about 50 attendees to this retreat at $20 a person and 2 meals included.
I made a mistake. This is the same picture from the last slide. I'll put in the new one.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, it might be the same. Wait. Oh no, this is correct. Oh no, it's not correct. It's $20 per person. Sorry, give me 1 second. Sorry, everyone.
That might be an error on my end. Yeah, I think.
Josh, if you can exit the slide, then re-enter the slides.
For food? Sorry.
Okay, this should be correct. Okay, sorry. Feel free to continue, Tommy.
All right, so yeah, as I was saying, $20 per person, 50 attendees, 2 meals, includes venue, honorarium for speaker, and supplies, total of $5,000.
Each meal is 20 per person?
$20 per person.
Per meal.
Yes.
Okay.
So per meal.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to CAC with Jazz Reggae Fest.
Hey y'all. JRF is one of the most important musical events that happens every year at UCLA. And last year it didn't get to happen because of standing in solidarity with the encampment. And thus there's a lot of things that are changing for JRF's 37th anniversary as we were forced to go to a new venue due to there being construction in Sunset what is that?
Rec.
That Sunset Rec, thank you. Due to there being construction in Sunset Rec, so that's we're moving to Wilson Plaza, and $25,000 of our $55,000 funding amount requested is going to offsetting those venue costs, and then the $30,000 that's left from that amount is going towards paying for one of our headliners that will be headlining at the end of the day, that will be representing the reggae genre, as that's one of the most important pillars of our event. So super excited to bring this back and have a whole cohort of new UCLA students experience this wonderful event that's bigger than UCLA, as it is important for the Los Angeles community at large, embracing arts, culture, and music.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Seeing none, we're going to move on to my second referendum. Sorry, not referendum, non-referendum office. Basically, it sucks that non-referendum offices don't get out of a lot of money. So I just requested that each non-referendum office gets $5,000. But I just realized that this might not work because the money's for next year. Is there any way to go around it? No way. Zero.
So the issue with trying to utilize funds for next year is that your funds are not going to be available until carryover comes back next year. So they will not be available at the beginning of the fiscal.
Is there any way we can transfer this money to some sort of entity, then transfer it back into,
No,
like transfer it to discretionary, then discretionary to
no.
I have a question too, if I may.
Espino?
Why is that not possible? Because for students to, have to collaborate with departments, then that really means that we're reducing our ability to carry it out as student leaders.
Yeah, so your carryover is funds from the prior year, and they are active this year as carryover. And so you have until this year's fiscal year to spend it, which is July 31st. Once it crosses over July 31st, it is now carryover again for next year. And carryover is not available to discuss until we conclude the audit.
Can you restrict it?
I mean, we'll have to see how much is allocated, but that would be, a decision at another point in time. But generally, it's not advised to restrict funds in that manner. If there's not a clear intention to spend them, it's better to just leave it to the next council to determine how they want to fund their carryover, which we hope will be brought much earlier next year.
We'll re-explore this one. Next, IVP.
Sorry, would it be possible to introduce a bylaw change that would allow us to move leftover surplus into discretionary? Why not?
Because
it's not a bylaw thing, is it?
It's not a bylaw thing.
Like a ACCA thing.
Yeah, no, it's like financial policies and IRS thing. And
Broad.
yeah, no, not even that. It's, generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP standards, which I am not well versed in, but there are policies on what you can do with finances, and these are student fees, so we have to follow all of those policies. So our policies say that we have to spend funds within the fiscal year, and if we don't, then they're carryover for the next year. And again, because we do an annual financial audit, those funds, we will not be able to see or know what the detail is of those funds until we close the fiscal year and conclude the audit, and then we know it's available for carryover. So there is no way to put funding from this year into next year's budget, because at that point it's just carryover for next year. So when carryover is available, we'll bring it back up to next year's council, and then they will be able to determine what to spend it on.
What if we like transferred this money to a center like the TSC, for example, and then all the non-referendum offices next year just collab with the TSC to use that money? Like, would that work?
So that's a different allocation than what's being proposed right now. When you partner with other university entities or departments, they are on a different fiscal year. So if they have the ability to carry out the programs into the next year within their own financial system, then they can, and that's why you all are able to partner with other campus departments and transfer funds for them to disperse and utilize. But anything that's staying within SGA is subject to USA, ASUCLA, and other UCLA financial policies.
What would be the problem with restricting it?
Generally, restricting it is just, you're just basically like making those funds unavailable for use next year to that seated council. And generally, we don't advise that, just because, you know, at the end of the year, anything that is unspent should be available for the next year's council to determine how to spend that carryover.
I don't want to draw this out too long, but would it be possible to create, this is probably long term, but like, would it be possible to create a separate organization who, in its rules, it gives funding based off of what USAC votes on, but it's not, you know, part of like whatever current funding bodies we have, and we just transfer the money there?
Most likely not, because again, these are student
I'm not
fee
hearing
funds.
that, though.
So we need to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible with how we spend these student fee funds.
Okay, we'll re-explore this later, but I think worst case scenario, we could just reallocate it somehow. We'll look into it. Next, we have IVP. I think this one's pretty simple. We kind of have to do this one, but Josh, go ahead.
Okay, so this is actually eBoard's proposal. There's just no eBoard selection on the drop-down menu for the proposal list, so I'm presenting it for Sujana. Basically, earlier this year, we had to fund the stipends for eBoard last year because they weren't paid, and there's not enough in their budget this year to cover the stipends for this year's staff, along with things like candidate reimbursements and ballot initiative representative reimbursements. So we are allocating a little over 2,500 to reimburse all candidates and ballot representatives and pay their staff this year.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, we're going to move on to IVP's Housing Relief Fund.
I have a slideshow I can breeze through if that's okay.
If it's 2 to 3 minutes, then yes.
Okay, I can make that work. Okay, basically we are requesting $75,000 or a $45,000 minimum for our housing relief fund, which we put on every year. Basically, this is an initiative that seeks to lighten the financial burden of housing payments so students can focus on their academic development. Just a little bit of history. This was established in 2019 to alleviate the nationwide houselessness and housing insecurity crisis, which was exacerbated by COVID. Housing continues to remain a huge issue for UCLA students. Prices in Westwood are absolutely ridiculous. Last year, we awarded a little under $75,000 to help 101 students. And then this year, we're also supplementing the fund with $4,700 we made from our housing fair this year. And then I won't read these, but these are just some student testimonials from the fund last year, just about how the fund was able to help them. And then just some motivations for the fund. 5% of all UC students are experiencing homelessness at any given time, and this disproportionately affects Black and Latinx students. There was a 2020 RISE survey that was published on a study of 730 UCLA undergrads and grad students, and 18% of the respondents were experiencing some form of either homelessness or housing insecurity at any given time. And then prices for UCLA students are again extraordinary. The average cost of living off campus is $23,500 this year, and that does not even take into account things like tuition and health insurance. And then the highest allocation we were able to cover last year just covered under 10% of average living costs. Also motivations for the fund. Shout out to Diego, who actually passed a resolution on this at the beginning of the year. We're seeing an increase in criminalization of our houseless community from local, state, and federal officials. Grants passed v. Johnson essentially allows cities to pass ordinances to criminalize the houseless community by arresting individuals who sleep in outside areas like benches and parks. Our mayor, Karen Bass, has failed to bring any long-term solutions to address homelessness. Instead, she has focused on criminalization and unsustainable short-term solutions with her Inside Safe program. It is imperative that UCLA students have a roof over their head. And then these are just some other statistics on really high costs for housing, both on campus and off campus for UCLA students. And then just the timeline for the applications, we are partnering with the Financial Aid and Scholarship Office. Applications are literally going to open as soon as this meeting is over. And then my Material Needs Committee will be doing reviews of all applications anonymously using the Financial Aid and Scholarship Office's guidelines, and allocation decisions will be sent out during week 10. And yeah, that is pretty much it. This proposal essentially is going to help alleviate financial strain and barriers to housing and basic needs for UCLA students and accommodate the influx of students facing housing insecurity.
Questions, comments? Okay, I think we have two more. Josh, could we get the slides back up, please? We have TSR IBP transfer graduation celebration package.
Could I also share a slideshow if that's all right? Okay, so our transfer graduation celebration package, the very important stuff, which is how much money we're requesting, is divided into two different sections. The first section is grad photos, and the second section is grad packages. It says grad stuff, it's all related to graduation. And so our total ask is for $35,000, with $15,000 going towards photos, for the total cost of photographer time provided to us at a discounted rate for 56 service hours, and $20,000 is the total cost for grad packages, which includes cap, tassel, and gown for 400 students. And then next slide, please. So the photographer we're in conversation with is Willa Catolo, and this is a slideshow she shared with us, going kind of over like the packages and the insight behind it. Next slide, please. And so a little bit of information about Willa background-wise. She's actually an alumni from UCLA, actually was a part of CEC in what's it called? In her senior year, Charlie XCX performed at Broom Bash, and she took photos. Isn't that really cool? And we've worked with, or the TSR office has worked with Willa in the past, including last year especially. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit of information about what Willa's sessions look like for grad photos. There's some examples on the slide. A high priority on making sure there's an ongoing dialogue between her and the people on the other side of the camera, a quick turnaround time for final images, which is important for a program like this because it's nice to see your grad photos after you take them, as well as pristine image quality. Next slide, please. And then in addition to all that, Willa offers compassion and patience, affirming posing instructions, a memorable session, and skin tone accurate photo editing. There's a little bit of insight into each one of these on the slide, but yeah, that's kind of the overview of it, so I can keep it less than 2 minutes. Next slide, please. Yes, so here we've actually got a few examples, whether like it's in the studio or on campus, which is what our photography sessions will look like. The three on the bottom are actually from, I think, last year's grad photo sessions, so that's really cool to see. And then next slide, please. Then if you would like to see more about Willa and her website, like about her process and everything, it's linked right here. So feel free to check that out for more information, since I very much skimmed over a lot of that for the sake of time. Next slide, please. Okay, so pricing wise, you can kind of see the discount we're getting for the $15,000 package one, which is the deluxe package, which is the 56 service hours and 7 days of sessions. It's prorated by $4,600, which means we're getting this like final price of $15,000 at a discount of $4,600, which is really amazing and a very generous offer from Willa. And this is in consideration of how successful this program was last year and the need to expand it last year. So that is why we're going with that one. And then next slide, please. Here's some testimonials. I won't read any of them for the sake of time, but as you can see, lots of stars, lots of glowing praise. Next slide, please. And here's a little message from Willa about service and pricing philosophy. If you guys want to read it, please do. Again, for the sake of time, I won't read it all out, but I think it is very important. So I'll send the link to this slide to everyone as well. Next slide, please. And then a message from Willa again saying thank you for getting to know her. And then next slide, please. And then for the second part, just a little bit more detail than the very first thing we said, which is that our goal is to give away 400 grad packages that include that cap, tassel, gown, and cord, or well, it doesn't come with a cord, actually. That was a typo. But yeah, according to the UCLA store, you can buy each of these items individually, the tassel, cap, and gown. And the package for gown, cap, and tassels come at a cost of $50 each. And that's the package we would make available through a giveaway linked on the website. Next slide, please. And last year, TSR XGR2 gave out 256 packages, but over 300 people filled out the form before it was closed. And so it's clear that there's like a high demand similar with the photography, which is why it's being hoped to scale up. Next slide, please. And then final remarks, please, 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 there is so much transfer need and interest, like please support transfer students. That was like, I was really desperate when I was working on this. But yeah, this is an initiative that was continued from last year. And I think there's a very clear demonstrated high student interest from last year and will really help transfers celebrate their graduation. Let me know if you have any questions. And Willa is actually here on Zoom if anyone has any questions for her.
Comments, questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the final proposal. We have CEC Ultra Bloom.
So yes, so Ultra Bloom is our annual electronic music festival. It's a 4-hour free concert in Kirchhoff Patio for students who enjoy listening to house, EDM, ballroom, and other similar genres. Similar to what Kylan was saying about jazz reggae last year, we had to cancel our show due to the encampments and the unrest on campus. So we really want to come back with a bang this year. We want to have a great artist, and electronic music is something that is underrepresented on our campus. We don't have a lot of events that focus on that, and so providing that for students, allowing kind of that community gathering space is very, very, very important. And yeah, any questions, I guess?
Questions, comments, Tommy. Microphone, please.
Why is the opener 20,000 more than the headliner?
That is a typo.
Oh.
Is the requested allocation correct? 20,000?
Yeah, the requested is 20,000. I think that's what, because I worked on this with our concerts directors, that's what we have at the moment. But the additional funds would go toward, obviously, the honorarium request, but also green room supplies, tech, lighting, design, all that stuff.
Jonathan? Any other comments or questions? Okay, that's it. So we have $554,111 that was originally in surplus or in carryover. If we were to hypothetically fund every single one of these programs with the full amount requested, we would still have 131,000 left over. We still have proposals from Robbie and Javi, but I think even then we're gonna have extra money. So I think at that point we just return back to what's it called? the thing we took from. No.
Your contingency reserve fund.
Contingency reserve fund, which was depleted because of last year. But we'll finalize that after we hear Robbie and Javi's proposals. Kira.
Where would, if it went back to contingency reserve, what would happen to those funds?
So those funds are essentially in an account that is utilized for any like emergency purposes, like if there was an unanticipated loss. So those funds just stay like basically in your bank account. That it's a reserve in the event that something were to happen where, you know, USAC doesn't have the funds available to cover the cost of something that wasn't anticipated, then you would pull from your reserve.
I just thought of a crazy idea. We'll send the non-referendum money to contingency reserve. And since we have control over the budget next year, they can put out the 45,000 for the non-referendum offices.
So I would not consider that an emergency use of funding. So I would not advise that. No.
Why not?
I'm going to say no.
Why? Why?
What are the specific rules around it?
So generally, I feel like any concerns over next year's budget, you should leave to next year's council. But your contingency reserve fund, for further context, it is per your bylaws that 5% of your annual funding income is set aside for a reserve for situations of unanticipated loss. So an example, years ago, Jazz Reggae Festival overspent and did not have funds available. USAC did not have funds available from their current year budget or their carryover to be able to cover the cost of those outstanding bills. So the reserve funds had to be utilized for that purpose. So that would be a situation where, you know, there was an unanticipated cost associated with the event that USAC is obligated to pay but doesn't have the funds for. That's what you use those reserve funds for, to cover.
In that case, would it be reasonable for us to add up all of the funding from stuff that we had to pay for this year that wasn't paid from previous years, and just kind of have that as an estimate for additional contingency reserve funds we might want for next year, and then just have that be carried over?
Can you restate your question? I don't think I understand.
If I understand it, contingency reserve funding is for funding that's kind of for an emergency use. We're not really planning it, but we have some sort of event that we held or some expense, you know, that we don't have enough money to pay for and we have to pay for it. And my understanding is that this year there were some like some bills that were outstanding from previous years that weren't paid off.
We're doing that from surplus already.
Sorry?
We're already doing that.
Yeah. But
yes,
my point is that wouldn't that justify moving some funds to contingency reserve? The fact that there was unpaid bills this year, there might be unpaid bills next year. And we could move.
Well, if there's unpaid bills next year, we would deal with it next year with an allocation from that particular fund if necessary. Okay. But if there's funds available from your carryover to cover it, that's where you would utilize those funds first.
Okay. So like, has contingency reserve ever not been enough to cover outstanding bills?
I mean, generally, there's more than enough fund. Like, there hasn't been anything to that extreme level. I mean, that's why you have Jonathan and Lorelai advising you all when you engage in different contracts or events, so that we know how much money you have available and you spend what you have available, because that's responsible budgeting. So yeah, there's a bylaw articulated amount that is necessary to hold in that account. However, yes, it's 5%. However, you know, generally we advise you also you don't end up in a situation where you would need to utilize those funds, because you should only be spending what you have available in your budget for that current year.
Jonathan?
The other big thing with that fund, and is another one of the reasons why you have Lorelai and I on you all the time about your contracts and your waivers and your insurance, is that if USAC were ever to get sued, that's where the payout comes from. any legal liabilities that
Why don't we
come
just
upon
empty it then?
USAC come out of that. And we are in a very litigious era in universities. So it is not out of the realm of possibility that that comes around.
Okay. So I think what to do is we'll listen to Robbie and Javi's proposals, decide on the amount based off those, and then all extra money goes into contingency reserve. And then hypothetically next year, if council wants to exercise their right over the contingency reserve and take money out for non-referendum offices, that's up to them, not up to us. But for now, we'll listen to Robbie and Javi's proposals. Does anyone want to start particularly?
I said Robbie should start because I have two proposals. The slides were sent to Josh.
Robbie, you want to go first?
Yeah, that works for me. I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting here, so I can present. Yeah, here's my slideshow. I'm very proud of it. It's pretty cute. But this is our surplus request for short takes. So next slide. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of context about what it is and then tell you what we need and why we need it. I will speed run though for the sake of time, but I am a yapper, so no promises. Next slide. Yeah, so what is Short Takes? Short Takes is our annual student film festival. It's the oldest one here on campus. This is our 31st year, entirely student planned and organized. We allow undergraduates and graduate students from across the country to submit their short films, and then we have industry experts in our judges panel review the short films, give feedback, and then choose winners in the various categories. It's a hoot. It's really fun. Y'all should come, but that's for a different day. Next caller, next slide. Why is this event important? For three reasons on the slide. The first one is it gives students a voice. We allow all student films to be submitted no matter what the genre or the topic is. And it gives them a platform to show off their creativity and, you know, their struggles, their successes, romantic stories, horror stories, everything under the sun. It also is really important in encouraging creativity on campus. It gives students an opportunity, like I said, to show off their work, where there's not many of those here on campus. And then last is networking. You can meet other student filmmakers, student actors, stuff like that, or industry experts and get your way into entertainment. It's a brutal industry to get into, so hopefully this helps someone. Next slide. There's a quote from our festivals director. It's really cute. I'm not gonna read it though. Next slide. I said it in the group chat if you guys want to read that. So this year's event, it's May 30th, 6 to 8:30 p.m. in James Bridges Theater. We already have our guest judges selected. Some highlights, if anyone's seen Dee Dee, Isaac Wong is the main actor in that. So that's very, very exciting. And then if you've seen Stranger Things and you guys know Erica from Stranger Things, no reaction, so no. But anyway, she's coming too. She's one of our judges. But most important is we currently have over 300 submissions, which is a record from across the country. So it's super exciting. There's a lot of interest in this event. And so we wanna do it right. Next slide. So what we need. We are requesting formally $5,000 to $10,000. Large in part, that money will go toward securing a host, which is very important for this event. I'll explain why on the next slide, but I've kind of laid out our spending so far in this pie chart that I roughly guessed the size of each thing, but it makes sense. But yes, we need this money for a host. Next slide. And the reason why the host is important is they not only pace out our event, but they warm up the audience. We have, stand up or whatever at the beginning. And most importantly, it draws in more students to the event. If you're someone who's maybe not crazy about seeing student films, if you don't care, whatever, by having a host there, if it's someone that you are excited about, then you come and you see those student films, and that just gets the word out, shares those stories further, and it makes more of an impact. So previously we've had comedian Connor Wood and SNL alumnus Chloe Trost. That's a picture of her. She's awesome. And as I mentioned before, the other important aspect of us needing this money is so that we can do this event well and do it right. As we've all talked about for the past year, campus is a very interesting place at the moment. It's very tense, and people don't really feel safe all the time sharing their ideas or their stories or their experiences. And this event allows that. It allows every story to be shared and screened, and people can enjoy, cry along to the movies, laugh along to them. And it's just a really important and beautiful event that we do. That's all. Next slide. I have a thank you. But yeah, thank you. Let me know if you have questions.
What's your number at? Is it 5 or 10? Like, what's the number?
Love 10.
Okay. Questions, comments? Seeing none, we're gonna move on to Javi's. Yay.
Okay, Josh, if you want, I can screen share. Yeah, okay. Beautiful. Some request. Give me my access, please. Okay, beautiful. Okay, so I'm gonna be screen sharing, but hello everyone. This will be the first proposal that I'm going to be talking about. This is a collaboration, if it wants to show. Yeah, so this is the surplus proposal that ASU really mobilized for to give public comment on. This is a direct collaboration with the mother organization, the Harambe Council, but most importantly, the EVP's Black Student Affairs team. So I just want to preface with that, and I'll just go through it. Yeah, this overview of what we're going to be talking about. But, first off, the Black Student Affairs team, again, y'all are familiar with this. This was established this term, and it works with different campus and system-wide partners on developing meaningful efforts and initiatives to support and uplift Black Bruins through community building events, to advocating for the needs of Black students at large in higher education to administration. So some of our partner entities include the African Student Union, the Harambe Council, UCESA, and the African Black Coalition. And then on ASU, this is just their mission statement. So they really just exist to promote, protect, and serve the interests and educational and political rights of the individual and collective needs of the African student body and the African community within the context of the struggle for African liberation. And then their history, they started in 1966, and through a large number of campaigns, including, organizing to end Coca-Cola's involvement in apartheid South Africa, to initiating UCLA's adoption of the holistic admissions policy, and more. ASU has been part of the community for such a long time, especially during the key civil rights movement, and have helped foster a really big sense of community for the 6% of Black Burns that we kind of see here today. Okay, and then just for quick explanation, the Harambe Council is the umbrella organization for all the orgs within ASU. It's around 38 member organizations, and they all encapsulate different mission statements and ideologies. And then the Blackburn Resource Center is our physical space here in Kirkhoff. It was established not too long ago, actually, which I'm going to go into. And yeah, this is the history of ASU with the ML Coalition. The one thing I really want to highlight is the formation in 1988, the formation of the Campus Retention Committee, including ASU's academic supports programs and other student-initiated programs to help bolster the retention rates for Black and Brown students here at UCLA. And then 1996 was the passing of Proposition 209, which ended affirmative action here in California, which was, a really big wedge in the work that these student-initiated programs do, but also a really big leverage for the university to continuously deny funding and access to marginalized student populations ever since its passing. Okay. And now into the actual proposal. So here's a statement of need. So the Education Access Retention Now proposal shall be used to support operational and programmatic initiatives of the African Student Union and to support the students that use the BBRC, including but not limited to staffing, space, programs, and services. ASU has historically opened doors for all marginalized populations here and helped directly combat systemic barriers that threaten students of color's access and retention on campus. Through these annual programs, projects, campus spaces, ASU provides a safe space for students to foster academic success, increasing accessibility to resources and community interactions here at UCLA. I think now more than ever, especially with the anticipated budget cuts to not just state funding, but also federal funding, in talks with community, there has been note that campus entities and resource centers like the BBRC are already facing like retaliation from the university for even just having the word Black in their like name, and also facing potential cuts to their staffing as well, limiting the services that they're able to provide to an already marginalized population here. Meanwhile, the university thinks it's such a great idea to invest more into policing, which disproportionately profile majority Black students. So I think that, also really encapsulates the need for this proposal. But into the actual breakdown, so the BBRC, from ASU, the Black students do not have adequate and comprehensive spacing. With the current 1,700 undergraduate Black students, the current 1,500 square foot center is inaccessible to the entirety of the population, despite the center providing academic counseling resources, community events, forums, and spaces. Within the BBRC, there are a number of projects, including the Academic Supports Program, Students Heightening Academic Performance Through Education, or SHAPE, and the African Education Project, or AEP. And in terms of annual programming, there are a number of programs that are put on by the ASU, including the Higher Ed Conference, Blackburn Transfer Extravaganza, and the All African People Ceremony, also known as AfroGrad. Okay, so this is the breakdown. Okay, no? Okay, so the total request is for a little over 100,000, and the breakdown is over to the left. So the main thing that I kind of want to highlight, or that ASU wanted me to highlight, was the programming fund for around $55,400, and this supports the various ASU annual events, Harambe Council events, and long-term infrastructure, especially with right now just how much is kind of coming down from the university in regards to these types of celebrations. There is like a really dire need for this type of funding. And then for the rest of it, transportation for their site visits, which they use to, help Black and Brown students in disadvantaged areas, specifically in like K through 12, receive the mentorship and education that they need to pursue a life in higher education. Yeah, and then further break down the programming. Really, 30,000 of it will be going towards the AfroGrad celebration, with 25,000 going towards the venue alone and 5,000 for the stalls. And then the rest is just like programmatic funding. Y'all can see that. And yeah, closing. I have more notes on like specific funding allocations if you guys have those questions, but let me know.
Jessica, Jonathan.
Yeah, what's the plan for like management of these funds? What department will be taking all of them?
Yeah. So this would mainly be in collaboration with the BBRC, and and ASU as like the overseer of the Harambe Council. Even though the Harambe Council is only receiving or anticipated to receive around $9,000 from this funding allocation and everything, they will still be like kind of the main proprietor of those funds since they like really advise them. But the BBRC, since they house a number of projects that ASU works with, including like all the ones I mentioned previously, that is kind of like where the main funding is going to go. And conversations have been had around that.
So the BBRC will take all funding?
Yes.
Okay, just to be clear, you cannot give any funding to an RCO?
Yes, okay.
We talked about the staff stipends.
Yeah.
To cut those.
Yeah, the staff stipends, yeah, I'm just uplifting the proposal. I am quite aware of the fact that this is kind of like not something that surplus can fund.
Yeah, we can't do all of it. I think we can do most of it.
Yeah.
For me, there's just a couple of things. I think staff stipends. I just don't know if that's the type of thing we can fund. I think you agreed with me slightly. Besides that, basically everything. But I think like even without staff stipends, it's still 80,000, and it just won't work with your other proposals. So is there any way we can knock 20 to 30K off anywhere?
We can talk about that. Do you want me to get my other proposal first?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So I'll go ahead and do that unless anyone has any other immediate questions right now. No? Beautiful. Okay, let me go to my other one. Okay, so this is my last proposal. Okay. Are you going to present? Are you going to present? Thank you. Okay, this one is called Basic Needs con Café. It's a little proposal, surplus proposal between EPP's Basic Needs team, Access and Retention, and the 580 Cafe on Hillguard. So basically, the Basic Needs team is housed under our Student Relations team, and it helps tackle issues ranging from food accessibility to housing affordability to overall college affordability. And this year, the Basic Needs team was able to put on a number of collaborative events that a lot of y'all's offices actually helped uplift and collaborate with, including our Fall Basic Needs Farmers Market. And then our Access and Retention team is one of our newer teams and largest, encompassing relations with our mother organizations, the Black Burn community, Burn Resource Center, and the Transfer Student community. And our vision is around the ideal that education is a right and that liberation cannot be achieved if there are gaps in equity due to systemic and interpersonal academic discrimination. Okay, now the 580 Cafe, just want to introduce you all to Jean, love her. Founded in 2010, the 580 Cafe is a space for students to build collective care, a sense of expression, and a place to share food, conversation, and activism. Jean serves as the executive director and only employee. So any other staff and personnel that you see, those are College Core folks, aka like those are funded by a completely different program. 580 Cafe hardly receives anything. So currently much of the services that 580 Cafe like relies on are through donations from external sources and very minimal support from student affairs, despite technically being a non-affiliate of the university. And so these are kind of the stats and services provided by Jean. Really, in 2024, they were able to provide 12,000 meals to Bruins and community members in need, partly paid for by Student Affairs, averaging around 250 meals a week. They also have a food pantry, produce markets that they do twice a week, one at the Weyburn Apartments and also Mondays at 580 Cafe itself, and also food stipends and grocery carts that are managed through the UCLA Economic Crisis Response Team. So it's really, really, really an essential part of our basic needs framework here at UCLA that I want to uplift. And so here's the proposal. So really, we're asking for $40,000 to allocate to the food pantry, which would be a $5,000 allocation, and then $35,000, aka the rest of the request, will be going towards the community meals program. This would be around again, the stats, 250 meals a week over the entire academic year, so fall, winter, spring quarter, and then 100 meals a week over 12 weeks during summer session. And then so the total average cost for community meals alone is around like 95,000 plus 75,000 donations to the pantry. So this proposal only accounts for around like 23.5% of that like annual funding that is asked for. And so during these uncertain times, especially like during my conversations with Jean about this specific proposal, especially with everything kind of going on right now in regards to the federal government, a lot of undocumented and international students have found like a really big safe haven in 580 Cafe, especially because it's like away from the university technically as a way to sort of escape the institution. Now more than ever, the demand for not only just the food access, but also grocery carts, the community aspect of it, and the different programs that 580 Cafe puts on are really essential. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the surplus proposal. Do y'all have any questions on this one?
Questions, comments?
Mona.
Just as a really quick small question, do you know if like the food they prepare for the community meals, like prioritizes like halal options by any chance or no?
I am not fully aware of those considerations, but to my knowledge, they do try to be as accommodating as possible.
Thank you.
Yes.
Diego.
Do you know if like student affairs like is like gonna match it? I'm assuming no, right? Or like match any form of USAC surplus?
You're really funny.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
No, as of right now, there have been no words from the administration or at least student affairs specifically that they intend to match this.
Yeah, okay.
Especially with the anticipated 8% budget cut plus threats to federal funding. I highly doubt it during these times.
Okay, because they love to say like, "Oh, give money and then we'll match, quote unquote, match or whatever."
Yeah, but like as I emphasized during this presentation, a lot of the funding and support that 580 receives is through donations. So,
any other comments or questions? Okay, we have one more thing from Mona. if you want to share it.
Yeah, let me remove myself from the share screen. How do I do that? I'm stupid. Help. Okay, I see. Thank you.
I don't have a presentation to share like on the screen ready on hand. But essentially I was in a conversation with Sarah from the Transfer Student Center like a few days ago, and then even earlier today, she followed up with me. But if we are able to dedicate some money from surplus to help support the Transfer Mingle, which is like a space and slash event that the Transfer Student Center hosts for Transfer Bruin Day. If we could like allocate, let me look at the exact number, $5,917 or as much as we can allocate towards that amount to help with like the invoices they received, which is like a bit higher than they had initially anticipated. I think that would be really amazing because I think this is a really great opportunity for incoming students to like get to see more of like the student organizations here at UCLA, because while Transfer Ruin Day does have like a dedicated information fair that is typically reserved for like administrative centers, like academic programs and things like that. Like I even requested a table and they said no. But I do have a table at the Transfer Mingle, so it's a great opportunity for incoming students to see how they can find a community at UCLA through student organizations and talk to other students. Happy to answer any questions at all.
Questions, comments? Okay, so we can do this very easily. On the screen is where we're sitting in terms of budget with everything. The only thing that's tentative is Javi's EVP BBRC allocation. As it currently stands, without that allocation, there's 75,000 left or 76,000 left. So easy way would just be allocating that to Javi's thing if that works out. And then, like we said, everything that won't be used in surplus will go back towards contingency reserve. So all the allocations that don't end up getting spent just go back to the contingency reserve to bite back into the debt. And then hopefully that happens every year and it gets paid off. Josh.
Sorry, but could we also have a conversation about what Samahan Filipino was saying with the lack of funding in BOD and supporting cultural nights and giving, like maybe giving some of the funds or all the funds going into contingency reserve to BOD funding instead?
We can, but do you mean what money from contingency reserve?
You said the
leftover, all the money that's allocated, not all of it's going to be spent. There's always a percentage that doesn't end up getting spent, and that amount will go back to contingency reserve.
What about the money from the non-referendum offices?
That's part of it. This doesn't include it.
Question.
Happy.
If we were to put that back into the body like BOD, wouldn't that just create a situation like what would the timeline look like in regards to like turnaround if we were to find?
Nico.
We already allocated money to BOD in restricted surplus, if I'm not mistaken, and that is up to the budget review director to decide what to do with.
Yeah. I want to share those numbers.
Sure.
So from carryover restricted funds from Student Interaction Fund that are going back to BOD USA programming is $153,064.50. And then there is also an additional allocation from your 150K that is going to BOD, which is 67,500.
But we also have around 15 to 20K left in contingency, like council contingency. So hypothetically, we could use that amount to fund any org that hasn't or didn't receive proper allocation. It does raise questions of equity, but I don't know what other options we have now. Nico.
They can submit an appeal to budget review director and she can approve it, right?
But do we have any money?
We just got money. That's this year.
Okay.
But it's just up to the budget review director and how she wants to allocate that. And I haven't heard anything. I've texted her about, but I haven't heard anything.
I do believe the appeal period has passed BOD, so they would need to reopen or redo their allocations in some way.
Yeah. Okay, Kira.
Does that mean then contingency is the only, if they can't appeal, does that mean that contingency is the only
Or would they still be able to
Only
get
way
it?
I can think of right now.
Or what,
Unless we allocate. Oh, wait, are you saying contingency or council? Like contingency the fund or contingency council contingency? Which one are you talking about? Because I
Either.
was talking about council contingency.
yeah, the council one.
Yes.
And then what's the turnaround time for like the money that just came from like the restricted surplus? That still be able to go toward them? Like
If they
someone in
reopen their
Filipino?
funding, then I think hypothetically, yes.
Is that only if, but they couldn't do an appeal then?
If they reopen the appeal period,
Oh,
yes.
can they reopen it?
If they made that widely available, then I would say probably. But as your bylaws are written, the original appeal period from when the original allocations were made has passed.
I think we're working on like a case by case basis now. I think there's some orgs that came and talked to us, and I think it's fine if we take that on a case by case basis. So I think starting next week, any org that either reached out to us or reached out, during public comments, or that we know of, we can talk about that as it comes from our contingency. But I think, yeah, Jonathan.
I do just want to remind you all of UC policy PCAOS 80 that any reallocation of student fee funding from student governments to a registered student org has to be available to all registered student orgs.
Available in what way?
Sorry?
Available in terms of?
Yeah, every student needs to be widely, the exact words. I actually have a ball app.
Because at the beginning of the year, we allocated money to ISU.
For a prior year bill. That's different
It
than
wasn't,
creating
it wasn't,
an
it wasn't a prior year bill.
Still.
ISU was hosting.
UC policy is
ISU
that it needs to be open widely.
Yeah, I'm just like,
I
I
would
think.
encourage you to follow that.
Yeah, because you remember when ISU had an event and they didn't know if they're going to get their money. We allocated money to ISU from contingency. Discretionary. Sorry, I don't know why I'm saying contingency. What I was thinking. Sorry. What I was talking about this whole time was council discretionary, not contingency. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We have 15 to 20K left in discretionary, and we can use that money to fund. I'm so sorry for the terminology. So sorry. We have around 15 to 20K left there, and since we're working on a case by case basis, if we think it's necessary for us to fund student orgs, we can use that money to fund them. Josh.
So we could hypothetically invite them back to present and then make the allocations next week?
Yes. If we're all in agreement. Kiara?
Does that still violate whatever Jonathan was
No,
telling
'cause
you?
it's-
But that's just discretionary, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? We already did it once and nothing happened. Nico?
Okay, maybe this is like unrelated, but if the BOD money is unable to be reallocated because it's past the date, what do we do with all that extra money?
It can just be reopened.
Oh.
It's just that people can't make original appeals from their original spring allocations because that appeal period has closed.
Okay. And then it's up to the budget review director to reopen that, to allocate that extra money.
Yes, and Lorelai's going to follow up with them tomorrow to see what their plan is.
Thank you,
Okay, I think we have
there-
enough pieces. One with discretionary, two with potentially reopening / opening the appeal period for those orgs, if everyone agrees. Have you?
Question, is there, if in the hypothetical situation, the appeal / allocation period is open, is there a way to strongly submit letters of consideration for funding these culture nights? Hypothetically.
Yeah.
You would need to update the BOD guidelines to allow for that.
Do they not allow for it now?
No, it's not part of the application.
Oh. But if it's just like promoted, if it's just like phrased as an event.
Again, just in general, I think you all should just keep in mind it's gonna look like favoritism. I'll be honest, it is. And you're gonna get some pushback from other people, and whether you care about that or not is a separate question, but I think you should be aware that that kind of stuff does come off as favoritism and unfair.
Jessica?
Yeah, just to add to that, you cannot change your funding guidelines if funds have already been allocated per the original guidelines, because you also have to adhere to the viewpoint neutrality of PCAOS. So you wouldn't want to make additional changes that specify different funds available mid-year when there's already been funding allocation cycles.
Okay, I think we push the situation off to next week. We see what happens with BOD/BRD, and then we go from there. Any opposition? So 75,000 here. For BBRC. What additional?
Can you just clarify what the allocation is so that I can?
It's all
capture
here.
the spreadsheet?
It's all on the screen. 6,000 to TSC, 40,000 to 580 Cafe, 75,000 to the BBRC/EVP program, 9,940 for past year Rex, 20,000 for Ultra Bloom, 35,000 for the transfer graduation celebration package, 75,000 for housing relief, 2,567 for election board, Jazz Reggae Fest 55,000, Latinx Success Center retreat 5,000, open house 15,000, welcome 64,500, ISSF 30,000, research hub 10,000, AAC prep book rental 4,500, AAC fostering connections mentorship program 15,000, swipes for shirts 3,400, senators stipends 6,850, microwave access 6,180, lab code rentals 8,230, and non-referendum officer stipends 56,000, which puts us at $553,167.56 with $943 left over. Good? Bueno.
What do we do with the $943?
It goes back to contingency reserve. And then anything that we allocated here that isn't used goes back to contingency reserve. Do we have to put that as like a condition, or will that happen automatically?
It's going to go back to carryover for next year.
We want to, all the money that we allocate that isn't used, we want to put back into contingency reserve. Yes.
So anything that is remaining that is left required to replenish to the contingency reserve from what was taken out last year, we will replenish. But if you have additional funds available beyond that, it's just going to stay in your carryover. I want to make sure that's clear. We're not going to put extra money into the contingency reserve because we've already allocated the 5% from your last vote last week. So
yes, but there's the 80,000 that we took away.
Yes. So that 80K will go back, but if you have additional remaining funds available beyond the 80K, that's going to stay in carryover. I just want to be clear about that.
Is there any way we can? So like what I was thinking, and I thought we talked about this, but the amount that we allocate that doesn't get spent this year, can we put that back into contingency reserve?
Yes.
Okay.
We will.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Okay. I just want to be clear.
No,
it's
no.
not like 100% going to go back in because.
No, it's just because we talked. I remember we talked about it with Pamela.
Yeah.
Okay. And that money will replenish.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Any final questions or comments before we motion? What's our official phrasing?
I move to approve the requested carryover allocations as written in the total of the total.
I motion to approve the requested carryover allocation as written in the total of $553,167.56. Sorry, $553,167.56.
Second.
Adam motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 14-0 vote, that is approved. And we are done. I adjourn this meeting at 9:12 p.m.